My daughter sided with my wife and helped her hide an affair, saying, "I'm sorry, Dad, but Mom deserves to be happy." But after being left behind, they both returned, asking me for financial support. Hello Reddit I plus here. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 52, a senior operations manager for a logistics firm. I was married to Rachel for 26 years. We have a daughter, Emma, 25, smart, driven, and for most of her life, my pride and joy. We didn't have wealth, but we were stable. We owned our modest 3-bedroom home in a quiet Oregon suburb. Rachel worked part-time as a school office assistant. I covered most of the bills. We weren't flashy, but we were fine, or so I thought. Emma was always the light of my life. She'd call just to talk, send me memes, ask for career advice. I helped her land her first job in tech. A year before it all unraveled, she started talking about buying her own place. Prices were going through the roof, and she was struggling to save up for a down payment. Rachel had changed over the last couple of years. She became increasingly restless, almost agitated with our life. She'd started doing yoga and made a new circle of friends, mostly affluent women who posted cruise selfies and new kitchens on social media. She started going out more, brunches, girls' weekends. She never invited me. Then came the comments. My clothes weren't sharp. I lacked ambition. I was too content with mediocrity. She became distant. The intimacy faded to nothing. She was always on her phone, screen tilted away, locking it when I walked in. I asked if there was someone else. She said no. She said I was being paranoid, that she needed to find herself, and wished I would be more supportive of her growth. Around that time, Emma became noticeably colder toward me. She and Rachel were whispering together constantly. My daughter, once so open, had become a stranger. Despite the shift, the conversation about Emma's house continued. She had found a small starter home she liked. Rachel kept suggesting we should help her. Subtly, then more openly. I had a savings account I rarely touched. Bonuses, an inheritance from my father, rainy day money, my financial safety net. After months of their nudging, I finally caved. I gave Emma $120,000 for the down payment. She cried, called me the best dad in the world, hugged me like a little girl again. 3 months later, the housewarming photos were barely posted online when Rachel sat me down on a random Tuesday night and shattered my world. She was leaving. There was someone else. A man named Colin. He was wealthy, sophisticated, supportive, she said. She was moving into his $1 million house uptown. She'd been seeing him for nearly a year. She said we'd grown apart. She spoke like it was a chapter closing, not a betrayal detonating. And then came the dagger. Emma knew, had known for months. Rachel said Emma found messages on her phone but eventually understood that her mother deserved to be happy, that she'd come to terms with it. I did the math in my head. Emma knew when I gave her the money, knew her mom was leaving me, knew everything, and she let me hand over my entire savings. She smiled in my face, hugged me, sat beside me at the lawyer's office and signed the closing documents. I felt hollow. Rachel left that night with her suitcase. Colin waited in a sleek black Mercedes around the corner. She didn't even look back. I called Emma, straight to voicemail. I called again, nothing. I drove to her house. Her car was there. I rang, knocked, yelled her name. I heard footsteps. No one answered. She hid from me. The next few days were a blur. I moved through the house like a ghost. The woman I loved, gone. My daughter, unreachable. My savings, gone. Rachel filed for divorce quickly, said she didn't want anything except her personal items. Colin was funding her new life, and she didn't care about the house. Legally, it worked in my favor. I kept the house, but it didn't feel like a win. Weeks later, I got a brief text from Emma. "I'm sorry you're hurting, Dad. This has been hard on all of us. Maybe we can talk when things calm down." No mention of the money. No real apology. Just distance. I saw a lawyer. Asked if there was any way to get the money back. He was blunt. No contract, no conditions, no chance. It was a gift. And legally, the courts don't undo generosity, no matter how deeply it was betrayed. I turned the page. Sold the house. Bought a small townhome. Rebuilt my savings. I lived quietly. Worked. Read. Took long walks. 3 years passed. Then one night last month, my phone rang. Rachel. Colin had dumped her. Apparently his wealth was complicated. Investments tanked. The luxury lifestyle dried up. Rachel was unemployed. Homeless. Emma had her own problems. Laid off after a merger. Barely keeping up with her mortgage. She needed help with her bills. Utilities. Groceries. They came back like a tag team, asking if I could help out. I listened. Politely. Said I'd consider it. Then I invited them to meet me. Neutral ground. Small cafe on a Thursday afternoon. I arrived early. Didn't order anything. Rachel and Emma walked in together. Rachel looked tired, almost embarrassed. Emma looked nervous. Before they could say anything, I spoke. I laid it all out, calm, clear, final. I reminded Rachel that she walked out of a 26-year marriage for a man who promised her more. That she burned the bridge when she left, not just to me, but to the life we built. That her choices had consequences. Then I turned to Emma. I told her that her betrayal went deeper. She had not just stood by while her mother dismantled our family. She had knowingly taken my life savings, smiling, playing the role of the grateful daughter, while knowing the knife was already halfway in my back. I reminded her of her silence, her hiding, her text message, her complete lack of remorse. I told them both, calmly but firmly, you came here thinking you could reopen a door you nailed shut, but that door no longer exists. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your bailout plan. I'm not the same man you left in pieces. They sat in stunned silence. Rachel opened her mouth to speak. I raised a hand. I'm done. This meeting is the last act of a story you ended. Goodbye. And I walked out. I stepped out of the cafe and into the early evening sun. For the first time in years I felt light. Not happy, not yet, but unburdened. Something had finally clicked inside me during that meeting. I didn't owe them anything, not explanations, not comfort, and certainly not money. They had made their choices, and I had finally made mine. I didn't look back. Over the next few days, I expected another message, a guilt trip, a rant, maybe even an apology born of desperation. But none came. Rachel stayed silent. Emma too. Maybe they were shocked that I didn't crumble, that the man they'd underestimated, the quiet, predictable provider, had become someone who could say no with conviction. I won't lie and say it didn't hurt. Especially Emma. A father never stops hoping, but hope, I've learned, can be a cruel drug when it's tied to people who no longer see you as a person, only as a source. I gave myself permission to stop waiting for her to come back. 6 months later, my life began to feel mine again. I joined a hiking group, took weekend road trips, read more books than I had in the last decade. I reconnected with old friends, one of whom, Lauren, had recently gone through a divorce of her own. We got dinner one evening, just two old friends catching up. Then dinner turned into coffee. Then coffee turned into long walks, easy laughter, and a kind of companionship I hadn't felt in years. Calm, respectful, sincere. She never asked about my past, unless I offered it. And when I told her about what happened with Rachel and Emma, she didn't try to fix it or judge it. She just listened. That kind of empathy? It's rare and healing. One morning, as I was leaving for work, I found an envelope tucked into my mailbox. No stamp, no return address. It was a letter from Emma. The handwriting was familiar. The words weren't. Dad, you don't have to read this. I know you might not even open it, but I needed to say something without asking for anything. You were right at the cafe, about all of it. I made a terrible, selfish choice. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing because I didn't want to lose Mom, but I ended up losing you instead. I've thought about calling 100 times, but shame kept me quiet, and pride, and fear. I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't expect it. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry for everything, for the silence, for the betrayal, for taking your help and using it like it meant nothing. You didn't deserve that. I've started seeing a therapist. I've cut ties with Mom, things with her. They weren't what I thought. She's still blaming everyone but herself. I'm not writing this to throw her under the bus. Just to say, I finally see it clearly. If you ever want to talk, I'd be grateful. But if not, I understand. Love, Emma. I read it 3 times. My hands shook. Was it real? Was it just another performance? I didn't know. And for the first time, I didn't rush to decide. I set it aside, took a deep breath. Then I walked out the door, went to work, and lived my life. Present day. It's been nearly 4 years since the day Rachel left. Lauren and I are still together, slow and steady. She's met my friends. I've met her kids. We make each other laugh. We listen. There's no drama, no manipulation. Just peace. Emma and I have spoken once, briefly, over coffee. I told her I appreciated the letter, told her I hoped she was doing better. She cried. I didn't. She didn't ask for money. I didn't offer it. We haven't spoken since, but the door, at least, is no longer locked. Just closed, gently. Final thoughts. People will tell you that time heals. That's only half true. Time helps, but clarity heals. Boundaries heal. Choosing yourself after years of being chosen last heals. Forgiveness? It's not always about letting others back in. Sometimes it's just about letting yourself move forward. Rachel thought I'd be her backup plan. Emma thought I'd always be her safety net. But in the end, I was just a man who learned that love without respect is a trap, and trust, once shattered, is not something you owe someone just because they share your blood. I gave them everything, and now, finally, I give myself peace.